The purpose of this event is to demonstrate a novel DeFi architecture. It's to showcase its viability and to introduce all of you to the many benefits that a novel architecture can effectively offer the entire space. I'd like to introduce you, prior to introducing you to the DeFi architecture, introduce you to CJ and Mehul. They're going to be the people, they are the people, the core developers behind the architecture, and they're also going to be the people who are going to showcase and demonstrate the viability of the tech, of the agent-based architecture. Prior to actually showcasing the architecture, I think it's important that I gave you a little bit of context surrounding the motivation behind establishing such a novel architecture, its value proposition, and what we're aiming to solve with it. DeFi has sprung into existence, and ever since it has sprung into existence, it's grown quite a lot. It's showcased resilience even in turbulent times. One of the main drawbacks of the DeFi sector is the fact that it's prone and susceptible to attacks, to hacks, and to scams. Um, One of the main attack vectors that we've identified and seen exploited over and over again is the concentration of liquidity into smart contract based liquidity pools. What this ends up creating is a so called honeypot effect, where malicious actors can target specific pools which either have a vulnerability or are susceptible to a specific attack due to low liquidity or due to market circumstances. The aim of the agent-based architecture is to dissipate risk at the edges. As opposed to consolidating liquidity within a simple contract, we'd want to dissipate liquidity at the edge. So if I'd like to trade, I will have an agent representative who will be able to execute those trades on chain on my behalf. In effect, this eliminates the need for liquidity pools and it eliminates the need for concentrated liquidity in general, right? We substitute that specific need with a much more decentralized system, both at the level of the network as well as at the level of the architecture of the decentralized app. A second benefit to the agent-based tech is the fact that it can accommodate the preferred order book model. Typical AMM style decentralized exchanges struggle to implement this specific model, and it seems to be that this is what markets of all kinds of are trailing towards. And the final benefit is the fact that agent-based execution offers automation by default. Agents search, find, and transact on your behalf in the background, which introduces and opens the door to quite a lot of opportunities, particularly a lot of quality of life improvements, especially when we're trading between multiple protocols or we're trading within a specific DEX that perhaps offers great liquidity but doesn't have the best UI. Overall, this sums up the core tenets and the core points that we'd like to address. With that being said, I'd like to give the ball over to VJ. See Maliwal as you see him on the screen. Feel free to take over.
So we use the Fetch ecosystem tools and library like the Fetch network where our smart contract are deployed. Then we use Genesis to deploy our smart contracts. Then we use microagents library to build autonomous agent that can interact with each other to develop the V1 of this project. So if we talk about what is the core of the system, so the core of the system and the core of the architecture is the agents. So using the agents, we build a decentralized P2P DEX where users can place a trade. Agents communicate with each other to find a match and execute the trade. So if I'm talking about like order placing, so like once the funds are locked in a user escrow smart contract from the user wallet, then your order is placed And when the funds is released from match users escrow smart contract by the user agent, then your order is complete. So like how the system is decentralized. So as I mentioned, the core of the system is agents, and you can host your agent as your preferred system, like on your own computer, AWS server or Google Cloud, anywhere you want. So like you have a complete control on your agent. Whenever you want, you make it up. Whenever you want, you make it down. So like how we make the system is completely decentralized. So the current iteration of the agent based architecture is the first of many, and we are planning to keep the essence of the core architecture, but we will also be rolling out like in a incremental improvement as we continue to develop it. So stay tuned with us for the more exciting updates. So now my colleague Mehul will explain the each component of that system and like how they are integrated with each other.
So basically, building upon what Chirag has said, we have a decentralized peer-to-peer exchange platform when we would have a peer looking out for other peers for a matching order and executing it. So in such a scenario, the user's fund, when a user places his order, his funds would be locked in an escrow contract. So escrow contracts would be unique to each user. So when the funds are locked in an escrow contract, we would assume that he has placed an order. Whenever, so as soon as the funds are being locked in escrow contract, the agents would get to know the things via WebSocket connections opened by the blockchain ledger. We are currently using the entire Fetch ecosystem for building on it. So we'll be using Fetch ledger's WebSockets to notify the agents as soon as the orders are placed. Once the user's agent gets to know about the order that has been placed by the user, he would the agent would go on and search among all the agents that are there to find a matching pair for the particular order to execute. So let's assume that he finds a matching order. So both the agents would call on to their respective escrow contracts and release the funds to the opposing wallet addresses, thus completing a trade transfer and completing uh, the entire process of searching and the entire process of basically trade. So now let's see. I mean, the major part over here is the agent searching mechanism, which would be pretty difficult to achieve when the agents reach vast number of agents are present in the system. So we are pretty much inspired by how BitTorrent stores its files and how it propagates everything. And in a similar fashion, our agent would talk to a set number of random agents to see if it has a matching order. If it does not, it would look onto its child until and unless it finds a matching order. Let's assume the agent was not able to find a matching order in its entire thread, it would become dormant and it would still lie in the system. So as soon as a matching thread comes up, that agent would look on and find this dormant agent in the system to match the trades, and the order gets executed via both the agents. Let me quickly show you a demo of the things that we have built so far. So fingers crossed that it will work at this point. Let me share my screen quickly. So this is the basic UI at this point of our system. We have two agents that are already present in our system, and uh, we will be trading with FET USDT commodities. We currently only support CW20 tokens. We'll obviously be enhancing it to support the native tokens pretty soon. And so let's connect the wallet and see how everything goes. So once we have a wallet connected, we would see logs of our agent that has been linked to this wallet. So let us place a trade and see how everything goes. So let me place a trade, pretty small trade, pretty quickly, just so that the balances do not get changed much. At this point, our funds are being logged into the escrow contract. Once our funds are locked into the escrow contract, our agent will get notified of it. Hey, our funds have just been locked into the escrow contract, and we should see the activity on our agent's logs pretty soon. As soon as our agent gets to know that the funds have been locked in the escrow contract, he would be interacting with other agents, as you can see right over here, and would place an order if there's a match. So at this point, it did have a match with this agent, and the transfer transaction has been completed with this hash. So if you could go here, you'll see this was the previous message of locking funds into the escrow contract, and this is the one where an actual transfer took place of order completion. If we go into the orders, we would find it now under completed orders. So that is basically an entire overview of how our system works at this point. We would be adding more features. We would be adding order book and a lot of things as we go along to make this entire system more decentralized and more familiar to each and everyone out there. So, I mean, pretty much we are hoping we would launch a beta pretty soon and we'll give you updates about how the things work and you could play with it. So that's pretty much from my side. I mean, uh, I'll just hand over the mic to Nico again.
Love the presentation. Quite excited that we can first try as well. That being said, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to give you a short summary of what you just saw so it's all clear. We used the FetchAI micro agent framework in combination with Genesis, which is a developer tool to help create and test smart contracts, combination with the agents themselves to effectively reinvent trades can be executed. Unlike that which a trade would follow, which is you submit your bid or ask price, or rather you submit a request to buy or sell to a liquidity pool. In our case, you simply submit a trade, which then gets pulled into an escrow type smart contract. And once there's a match found, so somebody buys your sell order or somebody sells your buy order, the trade is executed. And fairness is ensured through the use of mutual smart contracts, agents, P scale. And I'd say that, in my opinion, what excites me the most is the fact that in a major way, this solves the most common problem that every DeFi protocol that offers trading has seen so far. Right? A vulnerable smart contract being hacked, funds being depleted. And with that being said, I think that this is, as far as an initial showcase, this is what we have so far. I'd love to open the floor to questions from the community. So if you're a listener and you have any question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll invite you as a speaker. This functions exactly the same way as Twitter Spaces does. Oh, Crypto AI has a question. All righty then.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Now it's okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so I have one question about do you have plans to make some documentation on how actually registration is going on the network of the agents? Because I'm messing around with these endpoints because, for example, I have right now one agent and it has 7 or 5 instances in agent first, and I don't understand how they match my instance. I mean, where I can read about this. Maybe I'm asking, I don't know, maybe it's not clear. My question is
Okay,
clear, but
yeah.
when you register an
So
agent, you receive some kind of case according to your seed phrase. And you have one endpoint, then you do the same next day with another endpoint. What's going on? What will be with those endpoints? They will be merged. How I will find my agent in network will be the same instance or not? Because
I feel like there's a couple of questions there, so let's start
yeah,
deconstructing them. Number one, a question to both of you guys is, can we look forward to documentation and increased clarity around the entire agent-based architecture, and in particular around how agent matching is done?
yeah, definitely. Our next focus will be adding a couple of features and documenting the entire journey we have been through, as well as documenting the architecture that we have used and how everything would look from a technical point of view, basically.
okay, thank you very much.
All right then. I assume that answers everything, Crypto AI.
Yeah, so simply waiting for documentation because right now it's not so clear. So I try to play
Yeah.
with it, so on, so on. Oh yeah, it's fine for me. Thank
Alrighty then. And does anyone else have any questions? All right. Well, guys, I have a question on my own. I'm interested in what your take is. I think that DeFi is moving in the direction where much more assets will be tokenized. And so instead of simply trading one crypto asset for another crypto asset, it's highly likely that we might see bonds or commercial real estate or really real estate of all kinds be tokenized. I'm curious, do you think agents will be able to, and in particular, can this particular architecture handle such trades?
Yes, definitely. This particular architecture would be, I mean, we are looking forward to build it as a modular concept which can be plugged and played into any systems forward. Right now, we just built it using CW20. We would be integrating native tokens on it. We would be integrating NFTs on it. We would be integrating a hell lot of things on it, which, I mean, you could just uh, plug and play it into any system that you would want and you can build upon it.
Lovely. I saw a couple of questions in the chat as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask those as well. Question number one is: does the agent-based swap work only with native and CW20 assets?
Well, right now we it works only with CW20. The contracts are designed for it, but of course we would want to support native assets pretty soon, and we would also integrate. I mean, all the things we would be bridging things from different chains on it. We would be integrating to. We'll be looking forward to integrating NFTs on it as well for peer-to-peer trading of NFTs. I mean, there are a lot of endless possibilities for these things.
Alrighty then, that makes quite a lot of sense. The way I see it, I also think that as long as the network is interoperable with the FetchAI mainnet, it's capable of effectively um, taking part in this agent-based architecture. Second question, and I think this touches on the first question, is how easy is it to integrate the agents into already existing platforms, for example, Uniswap?
Well, to be honest, agents are just scripts that you'd want to run. So we use agents to trade with Uniswap as well. There is specialized agents for the particular thing which could help us trade directly against Uniswap. But again, I mean, there are a lot of possibilities for agents. We could, I mean, in the end goal with agents is to host them on your own machines, and you could customize them as you want. You could actually run AIs on it to have, I mean, semantic analysis of the entire thing and uh, place your trades according to it. So that's what makes the agents entirely, I mean, a great tool to be used of.
Yeah, I understand. So there's a second part to that question that I'd like to answer, which is this is actually a question for Uniswap. As long as they're interested in future proofing their existing tech stack, and as long as they're interested in adopting or at least taking a look at a novel architecture, it's likely that they can integrate it with relative ease and effectively reinvent their existing value proposition. I saw a question there. Does this current architecture use kudos for compute? The answer to that is no. It does not use kudos for compute. And it seems we have one more question from Anomaly. Can the agents connect, interact, and pay on Web2 sites such as Amazon? So interesting. This is touching on agent-based commerce as opposed to pure DeFi. A bit of an interesting question, if you ask me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, agents can be used for any task that you want. Agents can be used for, I mean, regarding the system that we just built, agents can be used to for peer-to-peer trading between Amazon goods and your uh, decentralized currencies. And they could be used for anything as long as it's legal, though. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
There's also a follow-up to that question, which is in order to use Web2 websites typically leverage payment processors, right? And payment processors use traditional infrastructure, which is a bit of a challenge for agents to operate in. You actually want blockchain rails so that you have blockchain execution, right? Which gives you that fast finality, which gives you that certainty, which gives you that trustless environment where you don't necessarily need to trust the payment processor or the intermediate institutions. You just need to trust the underlying network that that is that's effectively hosting the transactions, that's processing the transactions. So to answer your question, Anomaly, agents are capable of interacting with Web2 um, services or products, and effectively commerce in the way you imagine it, agent-based commerce is possible. However, there are practical limitations that lie on the Web2 side and not on the agent-based side or the blockchain side. There's one more question has just dropped, which is, would there be any cost associated while trading using agents?
Okay, so the thing is, while onboarding, you need to top up your agents with a certain amount of funds so that the agent could actually perform transactions on blockchain behalf of you. So
Yeah.
that's all the cost that's required.
I think again, I think this is a bit of a two-part question. Yes, transactions on chain require a certain amount of affet. In the case of FetchAI, require a certain amount of affet
Hmm.
so that you can actually complete the transaction. But what you're seeing right now is a demo of the architecture. It's not a commercially viable sort of implementation, and in that sense, the business model behind it is very open. So there are you will need a little bit of Fed to be able to effectively pay for your own transactions. Uh, but as far as monetizing the actual architecture, that's an open topic, and we might answer that in a future Discord showcase. So feel free to tune into those as well. Are there any plans to link the agents to MetaLex or Atomics? That is a question for the project CEO. I would say that technically I think it's possible. However, those are two different projects, and they have their own roadmaps and agendas. So I'm unable to give you a precise answer uh, at this specific time. Another question has seems to be it's appeared. Can agent be smart enough to trade on my behalf? If yes, could you add more light to this, gentlemen?
Yeah, agent would definitely be agent could definitely trade on your behalf. I mean, agent individually, you could add on to strategies to agent to trade on your behalf. The strategies we added over here is to listen to the funds when they are getting locked, and then interact with other agents to find a match. But you could definitely make an agent to, uh, add your own strategy, lock funds, give agent the access to your funds, and make it trade against Indonesia. You can definitely do it.
I'd like to add a little bit of context to this question as well, just so people have a detailed understanding of what we're aiming for right now. So, due to the fact that this is a baseline architecture in its current iteration, it's very customizable. What that means is that you can effectively select the strategies, the frequency, the intensity of trades, and the overall markets within which you deploy this particular architecture. Agents themselves can be wrapped around models. So if you'd like to trade based on sentiment analysis, or you'd like to execute a trade based on on-chain data, or if there's perhaps a composite model that takes into account multiple indicators to be able to give you a more balanced output, right? A more balanced prediction and in this case, not only a prediction but a more balanced trade. All of that is possible. However, and it's meaningful, right? Because you'd like to remove emotion as much as you can, and you'd like to be as data driven as you can in the context of trading and in the context of commerce. So I'd say yes. However, in the current iteration of the agent-based architecture, we're actually aiming to keep it customizable. And so we don't really want to implement the strategies. Rather, we'd like to offer the base architecture and see what people would be interested to create on top of it. Right? Curious how FetchBot fits into this. That is a question for another showcase, and likely we'll likely answer pretty soon. Uh, the Matty P503 asks us, would your opinion be that the Web3 DeFi tech is still focused on improved efficiencies, resulting in disruption of existing tech rather than integration and sustainability for successful transition to accelerate critical mass adoption. A lot to unpack there. So let me. There's the current DeFi architectures, approaches, and implementations aim to solve all of these problems at the same time, right? You look at the back end and you want to solve for security and performance, and you look at the front end and you want to solve for user adoption and in continued adoption, not simply a one-time use, but rather periodic use, where the any DeFi DEX gives you that immediate sort of value that you're looking for, right? Broader adoption, however, isn't just simply a function of technology. It's a function of collective psychology. It's a function of supply and demand. It's a function of regulations. It's a composite problem to solve of business models as well. So I'd say that um, in its current iteration, Web3 is focused on the technology because for the bigger part of its existence, technology was the blocker. But as tech advances and is no longer the blocker, then you move into that next bottleneck, which is people's understanding, which is uh, effectively knowledge and not simply understanding, but awareness around this novel realm of finance. So hopefully that answered that question. A second question, and I'm going to wrap it up shortly, gentlemen, which is: are the gas fees going to be paid only in FET, or can we use other tokens as well? Transactions on the FetchAI network require a FET, so they will be paid in FET. I am unaware whether other sort of CW20 or native assets would be um, offered as unlikely. I would say in its current iteration, it's unlikely that other assets would pay forfeit for transactions on the FetchAI network, unless we specifically convert those other tokens into FET again. So it seems that Pythagoras theorem asks us, how do the agents scale computationally? What are current limits? Seems to be a cyclomatic complexity related question.
Well, uh, honestly, the agent ecosystem you is pretty much similar to any decentralized ecosystem that's out there. Agents could be hosted on any platform you would want. Agents could be hosted on AWS. Agent could be hosted on Google clouds. Agent could be hosted on your own computers for that matter. And the agent network scale would entirely depend upon how many networks that are there, how many people would like to host agents. And that's the limit of agent network at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Chirag, what do you think? I'd like to take your opinion on this.
Yeah, like I do agree with the Mehul is that like you can consider his agent is like one service of the microservice architectures.
Yeah, I understand, and I think there's a second part to that question, which is it touches on the limits of a single agent itself. But agents can run locally, right? So I suppose the limit of the agent is the actual limit of the local host. Would
Exactly.
you
You are
agree?
Yep, you are totally correct.
Yes.
Dipesh is asking us, are agents capable to negotiate? And the answer is yes, they are capable of negotiation. Something that we need to be mindful of is that negotiation in commerce is very normal. It's expected. It's the default mode. But negotiations in um, decentralized exchanges, whenever you're trading crypto assets, it's actually anomalous to negotiate. What you have there is price matching, right? And so you have price discovery that's facilitated by liquidity pools, and if effectively price discovery facilitated by supply and demand dynamics, right? And so the negotiation aspect in the DEX example is substituted by supply and demand dynamics. If a lot of people demand a specific token, the price naturally goes up. And if a lot of people supply a specific token relative to a small demand, then the price goes down. So both of those are possible with agents, depending on the context. In cases where negotiation makes sense, you can implement that strategy. And in cases where you'd like a more um, robust supply demand based price discovery, you can implement that as well. There's three more questions and that's it. Three more questions and that's it. Inochi asks us, can agents be used in trading in open market, or will this only work in a P2P trading setting?
Well, honestly, agents can be used anywhere, as I'm iterating it over and over again. Agents are basically just scripts that run on your computer, on any machine that per se, and they interact with each other. So, I mean, you could use agents anywhere. You could make them do calls to Uniswap contracts for trading. You could make them do HTTP calls for what you say. I mean, the possibilities are endless with agents.
Yeah. Yeah. So Inochi, I think what you're asking is it's not simply limited to peer-to-peer. You can have other network architectures, such for example, a hub and spoke architecture where agents connect both to peers as well as to bigger hubs, bigger liquidity hubs. In that sense, you don't really have any sort of limitations as long as you trust the smart contract based liquidity pool, then you can connect to it, right? That would right. But the peer-to-peer example, I think, is novel and useful in the sense that you kind of remove the need to trust a smart contract to begin with, which is at the root cause of so many inefficiencies in modern DeFi. Also asks us, can we give identity to these agents, leveraging self-sovereign identities? This is a bit of an interesting question.
That's actually an interesting question, honestly. So the thing is, again, I mean, agents are just scripts that run on your machine. So technically, theoretically, you should be able to do it. I mean, I don't think. I mean, Chirag, have you thought about this thing before? I haven't.
No, I have not thought about that, but we need to consider that, like, to solving the identity issues in the blockchain space, and like to make the DeFi tooling as a different things. Like, of course, we can give that identity, but it's a universal problem, and we need some kind of universal profile to solving this kind of self-sovereign identity in the system. So theoretically, yes, but practically it takes lots of efforts and R&D to achieve that.
Just a small add-on. I actually agree with Maliwal quite a lot in the sense that that is an entirely different problem set to solve identity, but there's a middle ground. Agents don't exist in a void; they exist to represent you, and so you can map your own identity to an agent's identity relatively easily. That gives you that flexibility in middle ground and decentralized digital identities or self-sovereign identities, I think once they come to fruition would offer an even more robust way of in relation to provenance of funds, in relation to taxes, in relation to overall utility for the entire blockchain space.
Yeah.
Final question. Final
Because
question.
one more
Yeah.
thing, as on the wallet, we have a wallet address, and like we have a name service for every wallet address. Same on the agent, we have every agent have their like some kind of wallet address, agent address we call it. So like we can give us some kind of name service to the to that a particular agent, and like do the work around this. But yeah, that solving that identity issues separate problem statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a question for you, Vijay. I think you'll like it. What if the case is partial amounts of trades? So partial trading.
Yeah, so like in our existing system, like not in the showcase, but we are working towards that from last few days. That is the partial trading support. In terms of the development is almost done, and we are just doing the stability testing of that particular features. Apart from that partial tradings, we have a few more features, like that is the cancel orders. The second thing is that like you can do the trade with your preferred agents. So like as I mentioned, every agent have their agent address, and if you want to trade that particular specific agent, you can do directly with them. Like we have a feature preferred agent. So yeah, we can do the partial trading, and we have a support on that system.
Just to give a little bit of context to the rest of the community, what partial trading means is if I have a big buy order and there's a few small sell orders, I don't need to wait for an equally big sell order. Rather, I can contact all of those small orders and effectively buy from them. Right? And the same is true if I have a huge sell order and there's a bunch of small buy orders. And oh, well, that I mentioned the last question is the final question, but this one is a very interesting question. It's from Max from the Azoya Labs team, who asks us, what about the obvious liquidity and spread issues this decentralized approach has? So that is, in a sense, a matching question, a liquidity matching question, and feel free to provide an answer, or I can provide an answer as well. Mehu, can you guys hear me? Right, it then seems that there's a bit of a disconnect. Max, I will answer that question right now. So yes, you can say that that's a big elephant in the room. I'd say that you can either have liquid markets or slower execution times. If there's a lack of liquidity, what that means is that you need to wait for a match to be made, right? Now, we're working on multiple solutions in the backend to tackle this specific approach. In best case scenario is there's always a match. Worst case scenario is there's never a match. But there's context here that matters quite a lot, in the sense that what how long are you willing to trade for how long are you willing to wait for a trade to happen, is kind of like the question that needs to be answered. If there's a lack of liquidity, but you don't really mind waiting 3 to 5 minutes or 30 to 50 seconds, then that's not necessarily a problem. However, um, there's also other tools that can be leveraged, such as scheduled future transactions, for example. And the obvious question, sort of the obvious answer to that is you can still connect to pools of liquidity, right? So you're not necessarily throwing that concept out, right? What you're doing is offering an auxiliary solution that's able to take away quite a lot of the concentrated risk and dissipate it to the edge. And you can imagine that a strategy such as dollar cost averaging won't be impacted at all, right? However, a strategy such as sort of arbitrage or high frequency trading, these high intensity, high volume strategies that genuinely rely on liquidity, they may be impacted to a significant degree. So there's context here that matters quite a lot, and that's sort of the end of that question. Very grateful for everyone's time. Seems like there are no other questions, and we'll end it here. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day or evening.